Rain pelted the sidewalks of downtown Chicago like a relentless drumbeat, each drop hammering against the thin shell of Emma's composure. She ducked under the awning of a closed coffee shop, heart pounding, and caught sight of him before he even noticed her. Derek. Her ex. The man who had left her nights hollow and mornings cold, who had whispered promises he never intended to keep. He stood a few feet away, oblivious to the torrent around them, drenched but defiant, his eyes scanning the street until they found hers. Emma's stomach turned in a knot of fear and shame. What if he called her name? What if he came closer, pretending everything was fine, pretending the past didn't burn? She couldn't face him, not today, not now. She didn't have the strength for the conversation that would inevitably circle back to mistakes, regrets, and the love that never quite fit. She took off running, the slick pavement threatening to betray her at every step. Her chest heaved, lungs screaming for air, yet her mind raced faster than her feet. The crowd blurred into streaks of umbrellas and wet coats, faces melting into strangers, until one caught her eye. A man, tall, steady, and calm, with an air that felt like a shelter in a storm. Without thinking, without question, she reached for his hand. She didn't know his name, didn't care, she only knew she needed an anchor, someone to pull her out of the suffocating gravity of her past. Her fingers tangled with his, and she felt the first pulse of relief in hours. The stranger, whose name she later learned was Ryan, didn't hesitate, didn't flinch. He matched her pace, maneuvered through the throng, and even though he said nothing, there was a quiet reassurance in the firmness of his grip. It was as if he understood that some dangers couldn't be explained, only felt, only escaped from. Emma wanted to thank him, to apologize for the suddenness, but her throat was thick with uncried tears. She didn't know if it was fear, relief, or a strange mix of gratitude and longing for someone who existed purely in that moment. By the time the rain had eased into a gentle drizzle, they had reached a small, dimly lit bookstore tucked into the corner of a side street. Emma's hand still clutched his, a lifeline she didn't know she would ever need again. She pulled her jacket tighter around her trembling body, feeling exposed in ways she hadn't in years. Ryan finally spoke, his voice low and careful, like a soft landing after a long fall. He asked her if she was all right. She only shook her head, unable to articulate the whirlwind inside her chest. The way he looked at her, without judgment, without expectation, made something ache inside her that she had buried long ago. Emma realized she had been running not just from Derek, but from the memory of the girl she used to be, hopeful, vulnerable, brave. Running from the lessons she had learned too harshly, from the heartbreak she had carried like a second skin. And yet, here was Ryan, silent and steady, holding a hand out not to control her, but to give her the choice to trust again. Days turned into weeks, and Emma found herself thinking of him in quiet moments, while walking to work, while brewing her morning coffee, while watching the sky bleed pink and gold at sunset. Ryan became more than a stranger, he became a mirror, reflecting a version of herself that still deserved tenderness, still deserved laughter, still deserved being seen. He never pressured her for details, never demanded answers, never sought the remnants of her past like they were trophies. He simply existed beside her, patient, reliable, unwavering. Emma began to notice little things, the way he would pause to help an elderly neighbor carry groceries, the way he remembered the names of baristas she passed on her morning commute, the way he genuinely listened without waiting for his turn to speak. It was impossible not to be drawn in by his quiet insistence that the world wasn't always cruel, that trust could be rebuilt slowly, carefully, without force. He never rushed, never tried to fix her, and yet in his presence, she began to feel pieces of herself return. But healing is never linear. One evening, months after that stormy night, Derek reappeared, unannounced, at a downtown cafe where Emma had agreed to meet a friend. He smiled that old, practiced smile, the one that had once made her stomach flutter and her defenses crumble. Fear and confusion surged through her like an electric current. She could feel the old familiar panic bubbling up, threatening to drown her in memories she had spent so long running from. And just as instinct drove her forward, she found her hand clasped by Ryan's without thought, without hesitation. Ryan's eyes locked with hers, steady and protective, and in that moment, she understood what she had been feeling all along. This was not just attraction or chance, it was salvation, it was love forged in the quiet resilience of everyday kindness. Derek's words fell on deaf ears as Emma realized she no longer belonged to the past. She belonged to herself, to the choices she had made, to the hands that chose to hold hers without expectation, without the weight of history dragging them down. Ryan stayed with her that night, and many nights after, not out of obligation but out of a genuine desire to walk beside her, through fear, through joy, through the mundane and the extraordinary. He learned her silences and understood them. He witnessed her laughter, rare and hesitant, and celebrated it. He saw the fractures in her spirit and never flinched, never judged, only held the space for her to become whole again. Emma's world began to feel less like a battlefield and more like a home she had been searching for, not in buildings or cities, but in the presence of someone who chose to stay. She found courage in small things, holding a hand, saying a truth, walking through the rain without fear, and discovered that vulnerability could coexist with strength, that opening up did not mean giving away control, that trusting someone again was not foolish but revolutionary. There were moments, of course, when doubt crept in, quiet evenings when she wondered if her happiness was fragile, if the past would ever truly release its grip. But Ryan's hand was always there, warm and certain, a tether to the present that reminded her fear did not define her. He never demanded that she forget, never asked her to erase the scars, he only asked her to let them be a testament to survival, resilience, and the remarkable capacity of the human heart to love again. It was not love that had swept her off her feet in a moment, it was patience, it was unwavering support, it was the quiet consistency of a stranger who had become her anchor, her reminder that life was still beautiful, still tender, still capable of second chances. She had grabbed his hand on a whim to escape her past, but she stayed because of the hope he inspired, because he refused to let go even when the storms of life threatened to pull them apart. Sometimes, Emma would catch herself staring at him, hand in hand, and marveling at how a single choice had changed the course of her life. One moment of panic, one instinctive grab, one decision to trust a stranger in a city of millions had led her to a love that was patient, kind, and transformative. It was terrifying to admit, but she had never known what it meant to feel safe in someone else's presence until she had let him hold her through the rain, through the chaos, through everything. And though Derek never stopped trying, though memories sometimes flickered like fragile shadows in her mind, Emma had learned to face them with grace. Not because she was unbroken, not because the past no longer hurt, but because she had chosen someone who would never let her fall, who understood that love is not about possession but about unwavering presence. She looked at Ryan one chilly evening, rain beginning again like the night they had first met, and felt an overwhelming gratitude. Life had handed her fear, loss, and heartbreak, and in the midst of it all, it had handed her him, a reminder that the world could be gentler than she imagined, that people could be brave enough to hold on to someone else when it mattered most. If you were in her place, would you have taken that hand? Would you have trusted, even after so much pain? Pause for a moment and reflect. Sometimes, salvation comes from the most unexpected places, from the people we don't even know we need, from the small, brave acts of reaching out. Comment below if this story moved you or made you think about someone who has held your hand when you needed it most. And if it truly touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to support more stories that remind us of the enduring power of love, hope, and second chances.